Carter, it happened again.
But no, this is different because there's no color, and I'm used to being colored.
Where'd the color go? Oh, let's just get this done, get back to normal, and pray that this is the final special episode of A Review to a Kill, the James Bond retrospective podcast where we rewatch every Bond from Nelson to Craig to review and rank each one. I'm your host, Special Agent Sedgwick, and returning for this debrief is an agent that set the record in downhill cello case slalom.
Carter, Chris Carter.
He did it with style. X Games. Today, we are reviewing Casino Royale from Climax. Technically, the first Bond movie ever made. This was a television adaptation of Fleming's first Bond novel from 1953. An American dramatic anthology series, Climax, licensed the story for an episode the next year and boiled the story down to 1 hour and mostly one location.
They did an excellent job with what they were doing. Based on the constraints they had, this being a telenovel and everything, I think they did a very fair job portraying a James Bond novel.
This version stars Barry Nelson infamously as the American Jimmy Bond. Peter Lorre plays Le Chiffre, and Linda Christian plays the Bond girl, an amalgamation of Vesper and Mathis named Valerie Mathis. Michael Pate plays the British agent Clarence Leiter.
Kind of weird. Leiter's always been a chameleon, right? So I'm thinking it's the same guy. He just changed his name for once.
It's his first cousin back over in the island. The film aired on October 21st, 1954, and was hosted by William Lundigan. The show was a modest success, and Fleming was invited by CBS to write episodes for a Bond show that fizzled out, and he turned the 3 stories that he did write into his short stories volume.
Oh, cool.
Fleming was paid $1,000 for the rights to do this episode.
$1,000. Did you translate that over into money today?
Nope. Honestly, given inflation, that's probably about $500 million.
Oh, I don't think it's that much. I think it's way less.
That was a joke, bro.
It's $11,000.
There's no gun barrel or pre-title. A shitty gun barrel sequence was shot and added in the 80s when they found the footage again after being lost for decades. The titles are just a few quick title cards for the show. We get right into it. After listening to the program host ramble about gambling, anyway.
I was like, what the fuck? We're going to get a Walt Disney-style exposition on Baccarat? But this is 54. They're used to doing it radio show style, so...
He didn't tell us really anything about Baccarat, except for the fact that men have lost their wives and their lives over it.
Yeah, wives and lives.
But after that, we get right into it. Fade into people entering a casino. We see our hero enter the frame, and a revolver aims wide left of him and fires, causing our hero to take cover behind a column. Very slowly.
If he was trying to shoot him, why didn't he aim at him?
Like anywhere near him.
Or anywhere near him. Like, I guess the first shot was a warning shot. Bam, I'm shooting.
The doorman asks if he's hurt, and Bond says he's still in one piece, but he doesn't know how.
Oh, I know how. The guy was an awful shot. He fired 4 bullets and just let Bond cower behind a post. He had 2 more shots. He could have waited.
Inside, Leiter asks Valerie Mathis what the racket was, but she's too distracted. Back with Bond, and the management is all apologies, and Bond says, "Yeah, can you just give me some chips?" I point this line out because it stabs my brain as one of the worst line deliveries ever. It's very not Bond also, but I have to forgive that as this was made 8 years before Connery established the character and a year after the first novel's release.
So yeah, this was the first portrayal really on screen of Bond, so you can't really say it's not a Bond delivery. It's not a Sean Connery delivery. I think this guy did all right. He obviously read the source material and played it his way. Granted, it was very Americanized.
Well, especially given the fact that the source material at the time was one book, and in that first book, Fleming very much had Bond like this blunt instrument, this everyman that wasn't important or special on his own. He wasn't a super spy. He was just someone that everything happened to.
Right.
So he does kind of fit that. And since like that was just the first book they had to go off of, you know, you can't really compare him to anything else, really.
No, not really. It wouldn't be a fair comparison, really. But
No.
I mean, that's what we're doing here.
Bond goes to a baccarat table, and as he joins in, Clarence Leiter makes conversation with him. Aren't you the fellow that was shot? No, I was the fellow that was missed. Our first really witty one-liner, and it's really good.
It is pretty good. It was witty all the way in from the doorstep. Like when the bellhop was like, they tried to kill you, or they tried to rob you. And he's like, no, they tried to kill me. And then like he walks in and he's getting his chips and they're like, well, since you didn't come in here and get your money yet, they weren't after your money. He's like, well, they certainly weren't after my autograph either. This dude is on it, sharp, witty.
Leiter asks Bond how to play, and Bond talks him through the game as he wins his hand. Leiter then asks Bond over to the bar for a drink and to explain the game further. We then catch up with Valerie Mathis, and she's talking to Le Chiffre. Le Chiffre is asking her about Bond in a goading, manipulating way, and it's working her nerves. Back with Bond, who's ordering scotch and water, at a table in the bar with Leiter. The two talk shop under the guise of teaching cards. Leiter says he's Station S, British Secret Service, and also that Herr Ziffer, aka Le Chiffre, or The Cipher, is on to Bond. Bond continues to pretend to explain Baccarat.
I like the spycraft in this scene. You know, the tearing of the matches up in a specific way to let them know who they were instead of using code words or something like that. The way they quickly changed the tone of their conversation, yet continued the conversation whenever somebody walked up. Well written. Whoever did write this did a fantastic job.
Leiter asks Bond if he's seen Le Chiffre before, and Bond says no. Leiter says he's the toad-like creature in the other room, and points him out, telling Bond he'll have to kill him. In this story, Le Chiffre is the chief Soviet agent for this area, and the most dangerous man they've ever had. A ruthless fanatic.
He's Peter Lorre. He's rather threatening little guy with his bulging eyes. I've forgotten how kind of scary Peter Lorre was.
I'd say he's intense. I don't know about threatening.
Intense, threatening.
He looks like a tiny little bug to me.
He is a tiny little bug, but he's a powerful tiny little bug.
But Le Chiffre has been gambling with Soviet funds and lost 80 million francs, which he's here to get back. So if Bond doesn't want to kill him, he'll have to clean him out and let the Soviets do it for him. But Bond will have to watch out because they've already tried to kill him.
Yeah, they already have.
Leiter points out Le Chiffre's goons. The Muscle, Basil, the Stooge, Zoltan, and the creepy thin man, Zurov. Incidentally, they're in the suite above Bond's in the Casino Hotel. Bond says, oh, that's who bugged my room then.
Yeah, already been to the room, already know it's bugged. This guy's on top of his game.
Mathis then approaches the two, and Bond goes into the Old Times Act, and Leiter excuses himself to put his Baccarat lessons to practice. Mathis and Bond return to the hotel together and enter Bond's room with people acting suspicious around Bond along the way there.
Yeah, like, why was everybody so shady? It's like everybody was in on it, but nobody was in on it.
In his room, they kiss, and he turns up the radio to talk to her. He knows she's been sent by Le Chiffre, and he knows the room is bugged. He screams this, by the way. I don't know how much that radio is actually helping.
Because he was yelling, almost abusively.
He tells her to say what she was sent to say and turns off the radio. She tries to play it cool and say what she's supposed to, while Bond acts like a dick. She begs him not to play, and he puts her on the elevator back to Le Chiffre. Le Chiffre wants to know if Bond still loves her, and reminds her Bond can't stand in his way of getting that money at the game.
It was well done. And I also like the fact that the moment he walked into his room, the first place he went was the bathroom, check the corners.
The spycraft is nonstop in this. They never give it up either, and it's so awesome for it.
It is. It makes it such a better movie.
Cut to Leiter in the casino. He's approached by Zurov, who's using the jacket over the gun technique and telling Leiter that he knows Leiter has 26 million francs to buy Bond in. So run that shit.
Run that shit.
Just then, the lobby phone next to them rings, and when the casino manager tries to answer it, Leiter stops him saying the call is for him, but gives the manager the 26 million francs to give to the cashier for Bond, and Bond only. With the manager gone with the money, Leiter smiles at Zurov and says, "Why don't you pick it up? It might be for you," and walks off laughing.
Very clever.
Bold and courageous.
That's pretty bold and courageous, but he knew that guy wasn't going to shoot him in front of the manager.
Well, the manager walked off. Then he talked shit.
Yeah, that part was pretty bold.
In this version, Felix is the cool, smooth, suave, brave one.
Yes, he is.
Fading to later, the game is getting started and Bond is formally introduced to Le Chiffre by Mathis. Just when everyone is seating, Bond gets a phone call to the effect of him being threatened to lose, or Valerie Mathis loses her life. Leiter knows the call is odd, and when Bond hangs up, moves in saying, "Pardon, are you finished with that phone?" allowing Bond to whisper for him to watch Mathis's back. You know, actual spycraft.
Actual spycraft.
Bond sits, the game starts. The music stings in that 50s TV way, and we cut to commercial. Fade to black.
Oh, we cut to commercial. That's what I called it. Ooh, time for a commercial break. In fact, I did. I stopped the movie. I got up. I went and made a root beer float. I came back.
Root beer float. How era appropriate. We fade back in to the game in full swing. Peter Lorre is a master and carries this film. Barry Nelson does not look like a petulant, angry child that got stretched out to adult size. He's no Bond, period. I'm not even going to further explain the reasons why, because it's every reason why.
I gave it to him. I liked his portrayal of an American James Bond. He struck me as a way cooler, our man Flint. More realistic.
I like this movie, and I like the characters in it, but he's just not James Bond. He's unfortunately bastardized from the novels, and even that, as I've said before, comes from the first novel and only that, and Fleming pretty much immediately expanded upon him and constantly retconned and changed and added to the character, so he's never been that outside of that one book, and he was Americanized and bastardized. And I just don't feel like he's anything in any way that anything else has ever been presented as close to James Bond. He's a nervous wreck.
That's fair. I didn't see him as a nervous wreck.
He's always literally biting his thumbnails. He keeps pulling his hand up to his mouth and biting the corner of his thumb real quick and then putting it down. It's a nervous tick. Dude's not Bond, I'm sorry. He was a great spy character in this, and if you can detach that, it's much more fun. But he ain't Bond. Bond loses hand after hand. Le Chiffre is cool as ice, and Bond is wiping sweat from his forehead. Bond loses more. In fact, he loses all his money. But just then, a casino man hands him an envelope with 35 million francs. But at this point, it's do or die. Le Chiffre and Bond started with 26 million, and now Le Chiffre has 52, only needing 28 more for his goals, and immediately sets the next hand at 32 million, almost all of Bond's new purse.
Yeah, it was pretty bold of him to go ahead and bet all that fresh cash. Me personally, I might have just got up from the table and walked out.
It was smart. It was a little bit of half of, he needed all that money.
He did.
And the rest of Bond's purse would have given him what he needs. And that it was a smart bet because he'd been winning all night. And if he won, he would have been done right then and there.
Right.
And so would have been Bond. But if he lost, he still would have only been out a little over half of his winnings so far.
Right.
And as he told his boy when he did lose, I'm still in this. I still have room to bleed, basically. Luckily for Bond, it seems the luck is no longer on the other shoe. Bond wins with a 4 to Le Chiffre's 3 and nets another 32 million, giving him 67 million to work with and knocking Le Chiffre down to 20. The next hand, Le Chiffre goes all in and Bond matches and wins with a 9. Isn't it really funny how he did tell his man it's cool, I've got plenty left to bleed, and then goes all in the next hand?
Oh yeah, I thought that was kind of weird too. It was I'm gonna write this out. We're gonna gamble for a minute, and I thought that's what it was gonna be, a nice tense gambling session. This motherfucker was like, boom, all in.
You are the worst gambler.
You are the worst gambler, sir. Especially you just lost 2 hands in a row. That's bad gambling. Just bet small. Just see how this is gonna work out.
The crowd gasp. Le Chiffre walks away, and Zoltan puts a cane gun to Bond's back, trying to get the winnings. Bond rolls backward out of his chair, disarming the stooge and causing him to flee. Bond asks Leiter where Mathis is, and Leiter says he lost her in the excitement, but it was her that gave Bond the 35 mil.
Wow. Revelation. Plot twist. Where did she get 35 mil from?
Oh, the French.
Ah, oui, oui.
Bond runs off to find Mathis and tosses Leiter the cane gun. Our first ever Bond gadget.
Yeah, real gun.
Silenced, too.
Apparently.
So he said.
Well, it's long enough to have enough baffles in the barrel, so yeah. It's probably only good for 1 or 2 shots, but that's all it takes.
And it's Hollywood, so he's not like it's suppressed. He said it was so silent that no one would hear anything and you would just fall over. Literally
I know that's what he said, but that's not how guns work, but okay.
No. Leiter holds Zoltan for info with his own cane gun and then rushes to the phone to do the ancient trope of screaming, "Operator!
Operator!
Operator!
Tap, 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 tap.
Operator!" into a phone until something happened.
Well, that's because back in 54, you didn't even have whole phone numbers.
Why would someone just sit there and scream operator over and over and over? Maybe if she wasn't there, she magically comes if you say her name 3 times, like Beetlejuice.
Operator! Operator! Operator!
Bond rushes into his hotel room as Leiter rings his room. After a long pause, Leiter tells Bond to stop being thick and hide the fucking check. Bond only cares about Mathis, but he finally goes to hide the check behind his door plate, and the lighting crew swings a spotlight on him.
Yeah, I thought that was weird. I was like, who's got the flashlight? But it was smart where he hid the check. I was like, that's pretty smart.
I wouldn't have thought to look there.
No, not a lot of people would have. It's not even in the room.
Bold.
I don't know how Lashif found that shit, by the way. I just don't. How the fuck did he find that? In like 5 minutes.
It was time for him to in the script.
I guess.
They were getting towards the end of their time.
They would have never found that.
The check hidden, Bond answers his again ringing phone, and Bond is told Mathis will die if he doesn't hand over the check. And Lashif uses this as an opportunity to enter with Mathis and his goons. Lashif demands the winnings and reveals Valerie Mathis is an agent of the Deuxième Bureau. The French bankrolled Bond to win when he busted in the game. And this is news to Bond, and Lashif admits he only just found out today. How did he find out?
I don't know. Maybe she told him. She's kind of loose-lipped.
I don't know, but he did.
He did. He found out. He's Lashif. The Cypher.
He Googled her.
He Googled her. She's kind of hot. I would have Googled her, too.
Lashif threatens their lives again, and we cut to fade to black. When we return, Bond is unconscious. Lashif says, "I said hit him, but not so hard."
That's a horrible Peter Lorre.
Yes, it is. It is.
That's the Igor Peter Lorre, but whatever.
He wasn't even Igor. That's just a fucking Mandela effect.
I know, he wasn't even Igor.
The goons restrain Bond to be interrogated for the location of the check. Lashif can't decide if he wants his men to rough him up or give him a massage, and constantly chides them for hitting Bond so hard.
I mean, you can hit him, but not too hard.
Right? You want us to tickle him, boss? They take Bond and Mathis to the bathroom and put Bond in the tub. Lashif threatens torture, but Bond just insults him and says, "Get on with it." Lashif takes pliers to Bond's toes, causing Bond to wail in agony. But he defiantly tells Lashif he won't get anything out of him.
Bond is a well-trained spy. Not gonna talk under torture. Come on. They tortured me for 6 weeks in training.
Lashif sends Zurov to head off Leiter if and when he comes, then goes to search the room for the check. Bond gets a razor from Lashif's cigarette case left on the tub. Bond cuts himself loose and frees Mathis. Lashif finds the check and sends Basil in for Bond, but Bond jumps Basil, beating him, taking his gun, and shooting him. Lashif walks into the bathroom and is shot 3 times. Basil gets up and is shot again for his trouble.
There's a lot of shooting.
It's really violent and kind of visceral. Like, even when Bond jumps on Basil and starts pounding him,
Yeah.
he can't throw a punch, but it looks so real because he can't throw a punch. He's just wailing on this guy like he's desperate to save his life.
Yeah.
I kind of liked it.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Lashif takes Mathis hostage, and Bond shoots him again when she wriggles free. Mathis runs to Bond, and they kiss. The end. Fini. The program host did the wrap-up, and the credits roll over a plate of playing cards on a table. I'm giving this a D+, actually.
Yeah?
It is very much hampered by the fact that it's a 50-minute TV movie from the early 50s. The acting is very mixed, to be generous, and it practically takes place in one building. They took a lot of liberties with adapting the material, but to be fair, the first novel had just come out and they were 8 years away from Connery cementing the character. They focused well on spycraft, keeping the subject serious and as close to the source material as they could after localization and restrictions. I loved this. I did. For a 1950s television hour, it's amazing. And I hate to have to compare it to things that wouldn't come for decades after, but I have to.
Well, yeah, unfortunately, this is a comparison show, and we are doing ranking. And, well, as good as this was, I'm going to give it a solid C. Being the first, mind you, I think this was a fair portrayal of Bond. Being so close to the source material, they did a fantastic job of just taking it and squeezing it down to just the barest of essentials of a whole book. And just poof, here you go. Here's the whole story.
But that also kind of robbed it a little bit of its soul and point, though.
Yes. Did it need more? Of course. Of course. But with what they did was still, I thought, pretty good. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Classic television.
For the kill count, how many do you think Bond kills?
I'm pretty sure he kills Le Chiffre and Blondie. And that's about it.
Hey, you got it right for the second time in like 17 episodes. Bond kills 2, Basil and Le Chiffre. Nobody else dies, unless Leiter's down there just plugging people at the end.
He might be.
For a total of 2. To rank this, and unfortunately we have to with other Bonds, and where I always give things minus points where they earn it, I will give this brownie points where it earns it as well, but unfortunately we do have to rank it with the Eon series. So for the pre-title, there is no pre-title. Second to last place because it's still better than that pedo shit from Casino Royale 67.
I cannot disagree with that. Second to last place because it is still better than 67.
For the title, there is no title sequence. Last place.
I gave it second to last place because it's not going to be better, worse than Casino Royale.
That's fair. No title sequence is still better than that one, I guess.
Yep.
By his logic, and I'm not going to argue that, actually. Moneypenny pickup line. There is no Moneypenny.
Nope.
Last place.
Still better than 67. Second to last place. 17th.
Q gadgets. The cane gun is the first Bond gadget, but no Q, of course. 14th place. I'm putting it over pocket lint.
I'm giving it 17th place again because of no Q. I mean, there was a Q gadget, but no Q, so.
Cars. There are no cars visually at all in this. Last place.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is the only time that Casino Royale 67's going to beat this movie because there are no cars. Had there been a car, it would have been above.
He's staunchly refusing to let Casino Royale 67 have any victories over Casino Royale 54.
None. No. That's not going to happen.
That's funny. Main ally, Clarence Leiter, the British version of Felix. He's smart, capable, helpful, threatening with a cane, and always on top of things. He is smooth, suave. He is brave as fuck, and always on top of spycraft. 8th place.
Well, you did rank him pretty high. And I ranked him at 12th place, just behind Tibbet, because I've put them in about the same. I do love those Avengers.
Villains. Le Chiffre, chief Soviet agent, avid gambler, lover of razor blades and torture. Peter Lorre was the best part of this film, and he takes his role seriously, but he never feels as threatening as they keep telling us he is. 11th place.
Huh. I'm going to disagree with you here a little bit. I liked Peter Lorre in this role. He was the best thing. I felt like his intimidation or presence was understated yet still there. He played it like a little fool, but he wasn't. But I ranked him at 6th place.
Understated. It was literally overstated. It was the classic case of tell, don't show. Main hench, Basil. A tall, mute, Frankenstein's monster-looking moron that does nothing but get jumped and shot. 15th place, because fuck Vargas and Yanni.
Huh.
They didn't even do that much.
You really don't like Vargas Ayani, do you?
They did nothing but drop grenades blindly in the water and get harpooned.
I ranked this at 17th place because I felt the henchmen were basically useless.
They strapped Bond down, beat him, tortured him.
But yeah, after he was tied up, but whatever.
They're the ones that tied him up. It's not like they found him that way and they were like, haha, finally.
Apparently they knocked him out during commercial break too.
Bond girl, Valerie Mathis, a French agent that loves Bond and bails him out when he goes broke in the game. After that, though, she's damsel in distress. 10th place.
Other than being a passive victim for most of the show, she didn't do much, but she did do some things. So I ranked her higher than Tiffany Case. So she is in 12th place.
Nice. I also ranked her higher than Tiffany Case. One-liner. Are you the fellow that was shot? No, I'm the fellow that was missed. The wit was real and almost non-stop, but not groan-worthy. They were actually witty. 3rd place.
I don't know. I'm kind of tossed up between I'm the fella who was missed and needed the practice when she was like, they were shooting at you or something. He's like, well, maybe they needed the practice because they missed. You know, that was clever. Like, they were all good. Slider was like, how do you play? It was like, how is this game played? He's like, well, like any other game, you win or lose.
For me, my ranking on one-liners is how I felt overall about all of the one-liners in the movie. I just used my favorite one to kind of signify.
I know. Overall, I gave this 5th place.
Locations. The casino, the hotel room, the elevator sets, all shot in Television City in Hollywood on one big soundstage. But as limited as they were, they all still felt like they were in different places. 17th place.
I also gave this 17th place because, of course, they didn't go anywhere.
That's really held it back. Sorry, TV show. 70 fucking year old television show.
Right?
Protracted attempt to kill Bond. There really isn't one. They just torture him for money. 16th place.
I thought they were going to torture him to death eventually once they got the money, so I gave this 13th place.
Fair enough. Mission. Plot. Beat a Russian agent at Baccarat to ensure his inability to cover up his embezzlement from his state. The defeat would see him discredited among extremists and possibly killed. The plot of this film is Casino Royale, with the meat boiled off the bone. And without most of the point, it's just a movie about two guys playing cards. 15th place.
I feel a little bit differently. I feel like they got the essence of the first book down nearly perfectly. And overall, I really enjoyed the whole overall plot of this movie, the spycraft and everything. I gave the mission 5th place. They nailed it in the exposition. They nailed it in the execution.
I liked the movie. I felt like the mission, for everything they were able to expand upon this story in Casino Royale, they had to strip it here. Like, I'm not going to pretend that this is actually a good mission. It's not. It's a TV episode.
I'm judging it for the TV episode that it is.
Well, I'm comparing it to the movies and only giving them bonus points.
How about that? I gave it a bonus points for mission. There you go.
Sounds like you're giving it a lot of bonus points. This is the most biased I've felt like your rankings have been. I feel like you're just giving it where you want it to be instead of where you feel like it belongs. Stunts. There are no stunts. A scuffle. Last place.
There are stunts, sorta. I mean, Barry did a leg takedown, so I'm giving it 17th place.
Score. There is no score, just musical stings and post-radio show era Foley works. Last place.
I know there was music in Casino Royale 60, whatever, but...
So it obviously beats this one.
Obviously?
And it had Burt Baccarat.
Yeah. Obviously it should beat this one. But it doesn't, 17th place.
Movie. This movie suffers the most for it having been made just to be another hour of television one Saturday 70 years ago. Why spend the money and take the time to make it anything more? No one even cared about Bond yet. But with everything against it, they stayed far more faithful to Fleming's work than the Casino Royale they made 13 years later. And it's honestly better than half of Roger's films. 11th place.
Well, I'm gonna have to say, I pretty much agree with everything you say. except for I liked it a little bit better. 10th place.
And as for Bond himself, Barry Nelson is a bad Bond as we know him. But not only was this 8 years before Connery showed us how to play Bond, it was also after one novel to work with as well. Fleming famously wrote Bond in that first novel as a blunt, boring, unimportant man that shit just happened to, and that was in his own words. Given the source material that Nelson had at the time, I understand the performance a lot more. Still, I hate that he spends the entire run biting his thumbnail and looking like an overgrown, nervous little boy. He's not cool or suave or tough, and he doesn't smoke 75 cigarettes or have a meth habit. He's also American, and I know how that pisses off oh so many of you grown-ups that need to grow up. But still, I'll give a single minus point to him for you babies. Fleming didn't care he was American, he was just glad to get it made. And y'all can just be glad for the diversion. 4th place, fuck Peter Sellers.
Oh, I too am giving Barry 4th place. I would have liked to see more Jimmy Bond and maybe see how he evolved that character. You know what I'm saying? I think he would have been better later. But we don't get that chance. So, fuck Peter Sellers.
And as always, Bond will return, and so will we. Until then,
I'm Agent Carter.
and I'm Agent Sedgwick.
Stay spying, y'all.